The Orion Nexus was silent, except for the low hum of star engines, and the occasional flicker of light through the council dome. The chamber was massive, an oval room of shining metal and soft blue glow suspended above the red giant Zeta Volantis. 13 seats curved in a wide arc, each one home to a different alien species. At the far end of the arc sat the seat for Earth. Jex Mellon stood there, tall and calm, wearing a dark Earth uniform with the silver crest of the United Planetary Alliance on his shoulder. His expression was still, but his mind was full. He had listened in silence as the meeting went on. One by one, the council members spoke. "The mining rights in Sector 8 will be adjusted," said the delegate from Vora, a sleek being with 6 eyes, and a voice like glass. "The new patrols should avoid entering Osari borders," added a scaled ambassador from the southern rings of Tanor. None mentioned Earth. Jex waited, hoping someone would bring up the attack. No one did. He cleared his throat. "Last week," he began, voice steady, "a human colony ship was raided near the Seta Rim. 14 dead. Cargo lost. We've sent several requests for patrol aid." Silence. The High Chancellor, Vurek, looked up slowly. His skin shimmered like steel, and his 4 fingers tapped lightly on the arm of his chair. "We received your report," Vurek said. "It's being processed." "Processed?" Jex asked, trying not to raise his voice. "Our people were killed." "The Council cannot react to every isolated incident," said another voice, sharp, dismissive. Jex looked around. None of the other members met his eyes. He sat back, hands folded, anger tightening in his chest. This wasn't new. For years, Earth had sent warnings, requests, proposals. Most were ignored. Others were delayed until they didn't matter anymore. Earth had joined the Council 30 years ago. They were promised unity, shared knowledge, protection. But now, it felt like they were simply being used. Their technology had been adapted by other species. Their trade routes were busy, but rarely protected. Their voice, a whisper in a room full of noise. Jex remembered his first day in the chamber. He had worn the same uniform. He had spoken with hope. Now his words felt like wind against stone. The meeting ended. Vurek stood and gave his usual cold goodbye. The others followed. Some nodded politely to Jex. Most just walked out. Jex remained seated. One of his aides, a young woman named Lyra, approached. "Commander," she said softly, "should we file another formal request?" Jex looked up at the high dome above. Through it, stars blinked quietly. "No," he said. "We're done asking." Lyra stared. "You mean?" "Yes," Jex said. "It's time." He stood, back straight. He had made his decision. Tomorrow, he would speak. Not another request. Not another report. A final statement. No more whispers. Only truth. The lights in Earth's diplomatic quarters were dim. Jex Mellon stood at the wide window, watching the stars outside Orion Nexus. They didn't twinkle here. They burned steady and cold, just like the Council. Behind him, his team gathered around a long table. Lyra, his aide, was reading reports. Commander Torin, Earth's defense advisor, paced back and forth, arms crossed. "They won't listen," Torin said. "They never have." "They will," Jex replied. "But not to more words. They'll listen to action." Lyra looked up. "You're really going through with it?" Jex nodded. "Tomorrow, I speak. Then we walk out." Silence filled the room. For years they had tried to fit in, to prove Earth belonged in the Galactic Council. Jex had spent most of his career building trust, speaking with care, following protocols. He believed peace could be built with patience. But Earth's patience had limits. The pirate attacks, the stolen technology, the silence in every meeting. It was clear now. Earth was not seen as an equal. They were seen as a resource. Now Jex would give the Council something they couldn't ignore. The next day, the Council chamber was full. The seats around the arc were occupied by tall, strange beings, each one different in size, shape, and presence. They spoke in quiet tones, exchanging news from across the stars. Jex walked in calmly. His team followed, silent and focused. He took his seat without looking at anyone. Lyra handed him a small data slate with his speech on it. He didn't need it. High Chancellor Vurick raised a hand. The room fell silent. "We begin today with updates from my request the floor," Jex said, standing. Vurick raised an eyebrow. "Earth will wait its turn." "No," Jex said. "Earth has waited long enough." There was a pause. Then Vurick leaned back. "Proceed." Jex stepped forward. His voice was calm, steady, and clear. "For 30 years, Earth has been a member of this council. We came with hope, with trust, and with a willingness to learn. We shared our technology. We followed your rules. We believed in unity." He looked around the chamber. No one spoke. "But when our colonies are attacked, you delay. When our scientists ask for support, you dismiss them. When we speak, you pretend to listen." Jex paused, then took one step closer to the center. "Earth will no longer be part of a council that sees us as less. We withdraw, effective immediately." Gasps echoed across the room. Vurick stood. "This is not how things are done." "It is now," Jex replied. "You'll isolate your people. You'll lose support, trade, security." Jex looked at him. "We already lost those things while sitting at your table." He turned. His team followed without a word. As they walked out, the chamber was silent. No one stopped them. Jex didn't look back. Outside the council hall, Lyra walked beside him. "They didn't even try to stop you." "They will," Jex said. "Not today, but soon." "How can you be sure?" Jex gave a small, tired smile. "Because they just lost more than they know." 2 days had passed since Earth walked out. The Galactic Council, once calm and confident, was now anything but. Inside the grand chamber of Orion Nexus, voices clashed like waves in a storm. Delegates shouted over one another. Charts flickered on large holoscreens, showing red alerts across key trade sectors. "Zoran freighters have been halted at Earth's export gates. Our patrol vessels depended on Earth's relay satellites. Communication is failing. Pirate activity has tripled near the outer sectors." The order was gone. High Chancellor Vurick sat at the head of the arc-shaped table, jaw tight, eyes narrow. He didn't speak. Not yet. He let them argue. Let the panic rise. Earth was supposed to be replaceable. That's what he'd believed. But without Earth, the Council was unraveling faster than expected. Meanwhile, reports from across the galaxy continued to pour in. The Tanari Trade Corridor, once protected by Earth's advanced AI navigation system, now glowed red on every map. 2 ships had crashed already. The Polari Frontier, where Earth had stationed listening drones to monitor pirate fleets, was silent. Without warning, a convoy was ambushed. 30 lives lost. Dozens of Council systems had relied on Earth's quantum encryption keys to secure their data. Now those systems were locked, or worse, exposed. The cost of losing Earth wasn't just political. It was structural. Back in private chambers, Vurick met with his closest advisors. The walls were dim. The air felt heavier here. "They've been planning this," said Advisor Rexa, a thin blue-skinned being from the Glenari system. "Earth was never weak. They only acted quiet." "They won't return," added another. "Not unless we bow to their terms." Vurick's fingers tapped his chair slowly. "No," he said, coldly. "They want us to panic. We won't." He stood and looked out at the starfield beyond the dome. "Let them see what happens when they walk away." But even as he spoke, his voice betrayed a trace of uncertainty. In a separate wing of the station, the younger council members gathered in whispers. Not all were angry with Earth. Some were worried, others were quietly impressed. They stood up to Vurick. They weren't afraid. Maybe they were right. For the first time in decades, the council didn't feel united. Back on Earth, news broadcasts showed the council's disorder. Public opinion soared in support of Jex Mullen. People saw him not as a diplomat, but as a defender, someone who stood up when no one else dared to. In a quiet corner of Earth's Defense Command, Jex stood with Torin and Lyra, watching a screen. "They're coming apart," Lyra said softly. Jex didn't smile. He didn't celebrate. It's not about breaking them, he said. It's about making them see us. Torin crossed his arms. You really think they'll call us back? Jex turned away from the screen. They will. When they're ready to listen. Outside the window, Earth turned slowly in orbit, calm, patient, and waiting. Far from the council chambers and galactic chaos, Earth was quiet. The sky above the Andes Mountains was deep blue with soft clouds drifting across sharp peaks. Birds moved lazily in the wind. Below, in a private retreat surrounded by forest, Jex Mullen sat alone on a wooden bench, sipping warm tea. He had returned home the day after the walkout. There were no reporters, no cameras, just quiet. A small datapad rested beside him. It flashed every few minutes with new messages from ambassadors, generals, former allies. He hadn't opened any of them. Inside the retreat, Lyra sat at a table, sorting through reports. Her fingers moved fast, but her eyes kept drifting to the window. They've sent 37 messages, she said quietly. Jex didn't respond. 5 from Vurik's office directly. 1 offered a personal meeting. Still no reply from him. She stood, walked to the door. You're not even curious. I'm tired of words, Jex said, not looking at her. They used words to stall us for years. But things are falling apart, she said. You made your point. Maybe it's time to talk. Jex turned his head slightly. We didn't walk out just to be called back with the same deal. If they want something different, they know how to show it. Lyra didn't argue. She simply left the door open as she walked back inside. Elsewhere on Earth, the world had changed. People were still working, still living. But something was different, stronger. Cities displayed banners with the Earth Alliance crest. Students wore badges with Jex's face. News screens replayed his speech over and over. He said no to them. And it mattered. He didn't just leave. He led. Even those who had doubted the council now stood proudly. But some were afraid. At a military base in New Africa, General Solon met with Earth's Defense Command. What if they don't come back? Solon asked. What if we just made the galaxy our enemy? We already were their lesser, said a diplomat. Now we're not. That's worth the risk. The room fell silent. Back in the forest, night had fallen. Jex stood by the balcony, looking up at the stars. He knew Orion Nexus was out there floating like a nerve in the galaxy's brain. He wondered what they were doing now. Scrambling, planning. He also knew this. Earth had value. Real value. Strategic, technological, cultural, but most of all, moral. They had done what no one else dared. Walked away from power to demand respect. That couldn't be ignored forever. The next morning, a quiet chime echoed through the retreat. Lyra tapped the comms. A message appeared, not with words, but with symbols. Not just Vurik's office. This one came from the entire council. A joint message. Jex raised an eyebrow. Now that's different. Lyra looked at him. Should I open it? He paused for a moment, then gave a slow nod. Yes. Let's hear what they have to say. The stars above Orion Nexus burned the same as before, but everything inside the station felt different. The council chamber, once filled with pride and quiet confidence, now carried a weight. Delegates sat taller. They chose their words more carefully. The seat once held by Earth was still empty, but not for long. Jex Malin was returning. The joint message Earth received had not been a demand or threat. It was a request. A formal, united invitation from all 13 council members to reopen talks. Jex had replied with just 3 words. Only in person. Now he stepped into the chamber again. He wore the same black Earth uniform as before, but this time every eye followed him. He moved with quiet strength, his face calm, unreadable. Lyra walked behind him, carrying a small case of documents. Earth's flag patch was visible on her sleeve. No one spoke. Even High Chancellor Vurek stayed seated, watching in silence. Jex took his place at the center platform. I'm not here to rejoin what we left, he began. Voice clear. I'm here to speak once What you do next will decide whether Earth stands beside you or walks away forever." The chamber held its breath. Jex looked around the room, meeting the eyes of every delegate. "You treated us like tools. You took from us. You dismissed our concerns. You called us partners, but acted like rulers. That ends now." He stepped forward. "Earth will return only if the council changes. Real change." Varek leaned forward, his voice cold but measured. "What changes do you demand?" Jex raised a finger. "First, equal voice. Every member, no matter their size, gets the same vote. No more backroom deals." He raised another finger. "Second, security. A tax on any member must be treated as a tax on all." A third finger. "Third, transparency. No more secret trade agreements or hidden veto powers." Murmurs spread across the chamber. Some delegates nodded. Others looked unsure. One or two looked angry. Varek sat still, saying nothing. Jex lowered his hand. "You want our tech, our trade, our leadership. Then you take our terms. Or we leave. And this time we won't look back." The chamber fell into deep silence. Then, after a long pause, Varek finally spoke. "Your words carry weight, Jex Malin, heavier than before." He stood. "I don't like being forced to change. No one does, but sometimes, power must bend or break." He looked around. Earth's demands are accepted. More silence. Then, one by one, other delegates nodded. A few spoke their agreement aloud. Lyra leaned toward Jex. They said yes. Jex gave a quiet nod. "Not to me, to a better council." After the meeting, delegates came to shake Jex's hand. They asked questions, made short comments. Even old rivals spoke with respect. Jex responded with brief, polite words. He didn't smile much. He was thinking ahead. He knew change would not be fast or easy. But this was the start. As he and Lyra left the chamber, a younger ambassador from the Inari system approached him. "You didn't just come back," she said. "You made them change." Jex looked at her, tired but steady. "No one changes until they have to. We just gave them a reason." 3 weeks later, the council met again. This time, Earth's seat wasn't empty. A new plaque had been added to the platform. Earth, founding reform partner. The chamber looked different too. Not in design, but in energy. Voices were calmer. Ideas were shared, not forced. The old alliances still stood, but now, others spoke more freely. Smaller worlds, once silent, were raising concerns and making proposals. They looked to Jex Malin for support, and he gave it when needed, not with speeches, but with presence. He had become something more than a diplomat. He was a reminder. Lyra stood by the council doors, organizing datapads and notes. She glanced toward the chamber and smiled. Jex was speaking with 2 younger delegates, one from a border colony, the other from a science station near a dying star. Both had once been ignored. "Not anymore. Do you ever miss it?" she asked him later, as they walked through the station's garden hall. "Miss what?" Jex replied. "The silence. Being dismissed. Having to wait for someone to care." Jex smiled slightly. "No. But I do miss the quiet." She laughed. "You'll never get that again." "Good," he said. "That means they're finally listening." Back on Earth, the change was clear too. Trade reopened, this time fairly. Council patrols now responded faster to reports from human sectors. Scientific research flowed both ways, and Earth's people were no longer seen as outsiders, but equals. News networks replayed highlights of the new council agreement. Schools taught about the walkout not as a protest, but as a turning point in galactic history. At the United Academy in Nairobi, a teacher asked her students a question. "Why did Jex Malin walk away?" A student answered, "Because Earth mattered, and he made sure they knew it." One evening, on the balcony of a council residence, Jex stood alone watching the stars. A soft voice spoke behind him. "Ambassador Malin." He turned to see a young alien delegate, no more than 20 years old in human years. She looked nervous. "I wanted to say thank you." You gave people like me a chance to speak. Jex looked at her, thoughtful. You changed everything, she added. How? Jex paused for a moment. Then he said, softly and simply, by refusing to be silent. The wind moved gently across the high towers of Orion Nexus. Lights blinked across the sky, and for the first time in a long time, the galaxy felt different.